There's a generation that remembers life before the internet swallowed everything. They grew up playing outside until streetlights appeared. But later, they watched the entire world move onto screens. And somehow, they belong to both worlds completely, but also neither. Too young to fully relate to Gen X. Too old to fully relate to Millennials. So they became something else entirely. Quietly adaptable, emotionally conflicted, independent but deeply nostalgic. And if you were born between 1976 and 1985, there's a good chance you've felt this your entire life without fully understanding why. Imagine this. You remember using cassette tapes, dial-up internet, calling someone's house, and hoping their parents didn't answer first. You remember boredom, real boredom, not scrolling, not endless stimulation, just silence, imagination, waiting. But then suddenly, technology exploded around you. Everything changed fast. And unlike older generations, you had to adapt while growing up emotionally. Not after, during. Pause for a second. Think about how strange that really is. You learn childhood in an analog world, but adulthood in a digital one. That split changes people psychologically because Xennials became emotional translators between two completely different realities. They understand privacy, but also constant connection. They understand independence, but also emotional openness. They grew up before social media validation existed, yet now live surrounded by it daily. And that creates a very specific kind of tension internally. People from this generation often feel emotionally divided. Part of them craves simplicity, quiet, distance from technology. But another part feels trapped by modern expectations. Always available, always connected, always responding. And after years of that pressure, many Xennials feel mentally exhausted, without understanding why. Because they remember what life felt like before constant stimulation. And once you experience both worlds, you notice the difference deeply. Real life looks like this: ignoring notifications for hours, just to feel mentally calm again. Feeling nostalgic over tiny childhood memories unexpectedly. Missing genuine connection while surrounded by digital communication constantly. Feeling emotionally tired from endless information every single day. And secretly wishing life felt slower again. But there's another hidden layer here. Xennials were raised during emotional transition periods too. Many grew up with emotionally reserved parents. Handle it yourself. Stop being dramatic. You'll be fine. But later, they entered a culture encouraging emotional vulnerability openly. So internally, they often carry conflicting emotional instincts. One side says, stay strong. The other whispers, it's okay to feel things. And that emotional contradiction can quietly follow them for decades. Pause again. Have you ever struggled to express emotions openly, even while deeply understanding them internally? That tension lives strongly in Xennials because they learned emotional survival first. Emotional expression came later. And honestly, many still feel caught between both. Here's something most people misunderstand. Xennials often appear calm externally, while carrying enormous mental noise internally. Because this generation became highly adaptable. They had to. Technology changed. Culture changed. Relationships changed. Work changed. Everything changed rapidly around them. So they learned how to adjust constantly. But adaptation has a hidden cost. When you spend years adapting, you sometimes forget what actually feels natural to you. And many Xennials quietly struggle with that question today. Who am I? Without pressure constantly reshaping me? That's why so many people from this generation crave authenticity deeply now. Real conversations, real friendships, not performance, not algorithms, not carefully curated identities online, because they remember life before everything became branding. And once you remember that feeling, artificial connection starts feeling emotionally empty. But here's the twist: most people never notice. Xennials became emotionally resilient because they experienced transition constantly. They learned patience before instant gratification existed. They learned independence before constant guidance existed. They learned how to be alone before loneliness became digitally distracting. And because of that, they often carry quiet emotional depth. You don't immediately notice. Real life looks like this: wanting meaningful connection, but needing space constantly too. Feeling emotionally mature, yet strangely lost sometimes. Being comfortable alone, but still craving understanding deeply. Laughing at old memories suddenly, then feeling unexpectedly emotional afterward. And sometimes feeling like you belong everywhere slightly, but nowhere completely. So if you're a Xennial, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not emotionally confused. You're not stuck in the past. You simply grew up between two different worlds. One taught patience. The other demanded speed. One valued privacy. The other rewarded visibility. One felt slower. The other never stops moving. And surviving both changes people deeply. Maybe that's why Xennials often feel emotionally layered. Part nostalgic, part overwhelmed, part independent, part emotionally searching. Because your generation didn't just witness change. You became shaped by it. And maybe that's why you understand life differently now. You know what silence felt like before notifications. You know what connection felt like before algorithms. You know what attention felt like before everyone started competing for it. And honestly, that perspective is becoming rare. Because at the end of the day, Xennials aren't lost between generations. They're bridges between worlds, quietly carrying pieces of both. And maybe that's exactly why they understand people more deeply than most realize.